Here we go, episode 15 of the podcast. Today we're talking about a pretty heated debate nowadays in the amateur baseball world, and that is high school baseball versus club travel ball, whatever you want to call it. What's happening is there's a big argument or debate or discussion with travel ball, club ball coaches telling kids that they don't need to play high school baseball to advance their careers. And obviously high school baseball coaches don't like that. And in some cases, high school baseball coaches are telling their kids to stay in-house and not go play anywhere else other than their high school program, including the summers and this and that. But basically, let's be real. I mean, basically, my opinion is that what these people are arguing about is the parents' money. They're arguing about who's going to get the parents' money. So let's get that out there right away. Don't be fooled. For example, if there's a club baseball coach who's telling some eighth grader or some freshman in high school simply not to play high school baseball, then they're saying that because their intention is to, keep that kid under wraps and not let him get exposed to other things. And therefore, that person is probably capitalizing financially by telling them to stay with their club ball team for those months or some sort of training program or whatever. And that's the reality of it. Because no club ball coach in the country who's sensible would flat out tell a kid not to play high school baseball. And that's real. I mean, as of 2017 and 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, do things evolve and change? I don't know. But as of right now, all the elite high school baseball players, all the kids getting drafted in the top 10 rounds with the potential to sign professionally out of high school, those kids are being scouted during that spring high school baseball season, and they're being drafted. And a lot of that is based off that final look between, February, March through May, and leading up to the draft in the first week of June. So I don't know what these club ball coaches, what kind of ammunition they would have to tell somebody not to play high school baseball. But if the best high school players in the country are still playing spring season high school baseball, then that's pretty tough to tell a parent that. Now, can you get exposure, and can you get nowadays basically at least offered verbally, which means nothing, scholarship when you're in eighth grade or freshman year and have not even played high school baseball? Can you do that? Yes, it's a pretty extreme case, and if someone's very talented at the age of 14 or 15 and they've showed some things in some showcases or against high-level competition where someone saw them and a college coach is verbally offered a scholarship, yes, you can do that. But anybody with any type of playing experience or high-level training, coaching, playing experience, background in the game of baseball knows that a 14, 15-year-old baseball player is very raw, very young. They haven't had the experience. They haven't been really tested. Their body's nowhere near what it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And even college coaches don't like the fact that they have to offer scholarships to eighth graders or freshmen in high school. They don't like that, but they have to if they want to keep their job and stay competitive in their market and get to kids before other coaches or colleges get to them, they do start verbally offering scholarships, which in a lot of cases, if you fast forward 3 or 4 years down the road, the college coach might not even still be at that school, which jeopardizes that kid's offer. And, the kid's performance throughout the next 3 or 4 years also will could jeopardize his offer to that school. Again, a verbal commitment is exactly what it is. It's not a binding commitment or national letter of intent signature, which would not be till November of their senior year. And that's when a deal is a deal. Okay, so that's the situation right now. Is there's this big argumentative thing between high school coaches and club ball coaches, people that run some of these organizations, and back and forth. And so the high school side of things is they don't like to see their players extracted to club ball programs that would interfere with the spring high school baseball season. And in some cases, high school coaches insist that their players play summer ball with their programs as well. And I think, that's a touchy subject. And to be honest, my personal belief is if you're good enough to be asked to play with a certain team or organization in the summer, if you're good enough, then you should take that opportunity, because it may expose you to some really good things, whether that be college recruiting or, for example, like USA Baseball type of stuff. The area code games is a great opportunity for a high school kid. So there's these different functions, and a lot of the perfect game events are very good. But again, very small few. Perfect Game is a money-making machine, and they do a great job of it. But they also sell to parents that subscribe to the fact that, they want to see their kid get ranked as an individual player when they're in 8th grade or freshman year. And that's a bit ridiculous as well. If you were to tell me there's rankings going on for 14 and 15-year-old kids, I think that's ridiculous, because it's giving a false sense of who the player actually is. Because who you are at 14, 15 years old as a baseball player, is not who you're going to be when you're 17, 18, and really in a position to take the next jump to the next level, whether that be professional baseball or a high-level, college baseball program. So the system, as they say, is rigged, I guess, right? Because it's hard to find a definite right answer as to who's right and who's wrong, and everybody's pointing the finger at each other. My personal opinion is you should play high school baseball. 100%, undoubtedly, you should play high school baseball during those months, February, through May, June 1st or whatever. And if you're talented enough and good enough to be invited to play on another team who might spend the summer months and maybe even the fall months traveling regionally or nationally and playing in some of these tournaments where there's a high level of exposure, then great, then do that. That's what I suggest. But most of the players that are playing high school baseball aren't good enough to even, go and be asked or play on some of these club teams at the high school level that, are going around playing regionally and nationally in a lot of these events. So, if you're listening to this and you're a parent and, you've been exposed to someone telling you that you don't need to play high school baseball, or even a high school coach that says you cannot play, club ball in the summer, the reality is probably your kid's not even good enough. And that's a whole nother discussion as well, because, very few kids are good enough just to, basically call their own shots and do whatever they want throughout their, high school years of baseball. But certainly if you're getting invitations to stuff, where you're being actively recruited for something like, an area code games or USA Baseball, or some of these elite teams that are getting invites to some of the elite perfect game stuff, if you're one of those, then great. Take advantage of everything that's offered to you while you can. But most people have a false sense of, where their kid stands talent and ability wise. The high school programs, a lot of times are funded within, and they can't even operate unless they get fundraising or outside help. And, I can respect the fact that a high school coach is trying to build their program, and they need as many bodies as possible involved throughout the year in different types of things to basically fund the program. So they deal on numbers as well. And then you have the club ball coaches who basically are coaching these teams for profit, which is fine, especially if you are, a very highly qualified teacher, trainer, basically a professional instructor, that's fine. And I respect that as well. But when you intentionally go out of your way to tell a parent or a kid that they should not play high school baseball, and they're only 14, 15 years old heading into high school or being a freshman, that's simply ridiculous. You should not tell people that. For one, there's not enough activity at this time in 2017 during those months to just basically tell a kid, take the next 3 or 4 months off. We're going to do some training. Maybe we're going to play in 1 or 2 tournaments. That's not enough. And also, they're losing that exposure in a sense, because there is exposure in high school baseball. Okay, there definitely is exposure, and what I mean by that is get your name in the local newspaper, lead the area in hitting. Become all area, become all state, win Gatorade Player of the Year, get your name in the USA Today. There's a reason there's area scouts. Every Major League Baseball organization has area scouts in every area of the country. They're doing a lot of their legwork in the high school baseball season. College season is going on at the same time, and obviously, the college recruiting is probably more heightened, is probably most definitely more heightened in the summer and fall months, and that's fine. And that's a big part of what club baseball can offer, is that. But to tell a kid not to take part in their high school baseball program when they have to spend the next 4 years in that environment and culture is ridiculous. To tell them not to take part of that. It's a big part of growing up and being in high school and being associated with the team. To me, if I'm a college recruiter or a professional scout and I see a kid did not play high school baseball and he's a talented, good kid, I'm wondering, what the hell's going on? Is there a problem with his character? Is he a troublemaker? Is he getting in trouble? Why is he not available during these months? Why wouldn't he take advantage of something that's offered to him? So perception means something. So the perception of, who does this kid think he is? So there's that sense of, the kid's accomplished something already when he really hasn't. I mean, a 14 and 15-year-old, even if he's verbally committed to a college, the sense of accomplishment is not very high. He really hasn't accomplished much. And I know in today's day and age with media and everything else, social media, et cetera, these kids are made out to be little minor celebrities at a very young age because they, did something good at 14 or 15. And it simply doesn't translate into long-term success or development. So, you got to beware as a parent. Parents are the ones calling the shots in these type of situations. And there's a lot of people out there trying to manipulate parents and get them to go one way or the other. And please understand that it's only about the money, okay? If somebody, a teacher, trainer, or mentor that you're dealing with seriously has the best intentions for your kid, your player, then they're doing what I'm trying to vocalize right now, because my foundation of how I teach and train is intention based. So my intention for you as a player, and that's kind of the advice and how I talk a lot about philosophy when it comes to stuff like this, is what's my intention for the player. Now I'm a trainer. I'm a trainer and a mentor. I do a lot of individualized, personalized training, and I deal with my kids. They play high school, they play club baseball, and I don't interfere. I don't get involved in that. I know they need to play games as an outlet to further enhance their development as a player, and I appreciate that. And I have a good relationship with the kids and their parents, and in a lot of cases, their high school coach, and in some cases, their club ball coach. But what I see more than anything now is club ball coaches thinking they are the only option or should be the only option. And I think that's nonsense. Club ball is simply just an outlet to play games. And if you're lucky, it's under the supervision of some qualified people, if you're lucky. Most of the times that's not the case. Club ball is rampant to the point now, at least out here in Las Vegas, I see advertisements for 6U, 7U club ball, and that's a joke. And if you're running a 6U club baseball team, you should probably take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, I don't know, what do you ask yourself if you're promoting 6-year-old club travel baseball? That's a good question. But anyways, these are people that are just highly motivated by extracting money from parents to fuel their organization. And it is for profit, and people are making money that are not qualified in most cases. I have no problem with people making money if they're offering professional services. And I think a lot of times when we look out in the club baseball landscape, these are not professional services. These are people trying to supplement their income from their regular job, where they may or may not be a professional, but they're certainly not a professional in the baseball player development field in a lot of cases, and that's a fact. So we have this big debate, high school baseball versus club baseball, and as of now, I think kids should do both. I think maybe, there's certainly enough months out of the year and enough time where kids should do both. The high school season is really short. Club ball now, what's happening is these club ball people that are running these club ball organizations, they don't make money if you don't play tournaments. So, or if you're not practicing and you're not together as a team, so they're losing profit. So then they start brainwashing parents that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you should be with us, so that person can make more money. And so it's money motivated. Don't lose sight of that. It's a fact. Whenever someone's telling you what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and they're really, strongly opinionated by it, and what they're telling you benefits them financially, then let's put two and two together. That's exactly what they're doing. So hopefully no one gets their feelings hurt with this, but I think that's the reality of it, and that's what I'm speaking on today. And that's what kind of prompted me to even do this podcast. addressing this issue is because a lot of people lately have been asking me, with kids in the 14, 15 age range, 13 years old, whatever, is it worth it to play high school baseball? Should I play high school baseball? And immediately I stop them. I go, well, wait a minute. What's going on? Who's telling you to do this? Where's this coming from? Because never, in the past, in the history of youth baseball, would this even be a conversation? And I understand, the game evolves, and I'm not denying the fact that in the future, something, could arise where there is a better option than spring season high school baseball, but that's certainly not the case right now. And the evidence shows that based on kids being drafted and the most elite high school baseball players in the country. And why else would we even be having this discussion? Because why would someone tell an average or below average baseball player not to play high school baseball? Because they definitely need that time to prove themselves and their skill and their ability, not only to their high school coach, but to anybody who may or may not be recruiting them in the future or scouting them. And I think that's a big part of it too. If you ask a area scout or a major league scout, during those spring months, they're out there recruiting for the draft, if not that year, the following year. And, that high school season gives a lot of opportunity for major league scouts to see those kids play during those months. So, don't take it the wrong way. I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing club baseball, because it definitely serves a purpose, and it might be just as important as high school baseball, and it may be slightly even more important, but it's not enough to have a kid not play their high school baseball season, definitely not. And there's some shitty high school baseball programs with some shitty high school coaches that don't care about the program. I know I work with kids that are in that situation. But there's just as many, if not more, shitty club ball coaches where there's really no qualification to get a club team. At least in the high school system, you in most cases have to be an accredited teacher or have to go through, some sort of screening or whatever. But that's here nor there. The only thing I really care about is, the level of baseball knowledge, and I want my high school baseball coach to get me better and teach me things that's going to enhance my baseball career, just as I would a club baseball coach. But we don't see very high levels of expertise and really on either side. And again, I think that's where, what I consider myself as an instructor, teacher, trainer, mentor of skill development in the game of baseball, concentrating on hitting, fielding, position play, athletic training, whatever. I think that should always be the foundation of where you spend your commitment level and your time and your effort. And yes, it costs money, but I think that's most money well spent. To pay money to play on a team is an interesting debate. Even as, 15, 20 years ago, when I was an amateur, I never paid $1 to play on a team. And most kids in, my generation would probably say the same thing. If you're good enough, you were asked to play on the team almost as a favor to the coach, so he would have the best team in the tournament or whatever. But again, things have evolved, and baseball is now a huge business at the amateur level, apparently now starting at the age of 6. So when you make things such money motivated, you get a cesspool of garbage and trash and riffraff, and everybody wants a piece of the pie. So that's a lot of the times that's what you see, especially in the club ball circuit. And yes, and even at the high school level, the first thing coaches want to do is capitalize off the dollar. But I give them a little bit more of a break because they have to fund their own program. So fundraising is necessary. You have to do it. So making kids, go out and fundraise or else pay a few bucks to play is understandable. But club baseball, just an outlet to play, aside from the uniform and the tournament fees, yeah, I guess the days of the volunteer coach are gone. And what's sad is, the typical amateur coach isn't really qualified to teach at a high level and certainly not qualified to charge money to do that. So that's what you're seeing now is this club ball circuit where parents are paying 200, 300 bucks, 150 bucks a month, to have an unqualified coach, maybe with some fancy uniforms and playing a few tournaments, and now these coaches are making some money and they're not qualified. So that's kind of a whole different discussion as well, and that's really sad. And to me, that's the worst case scenario, or the biggest exploitation of amateur baseball is parents paying money for the kid to play on a club ball team and paying somebody for services that is not qualified. And I'm not talking about paying for uniforms or paying for tournament fees or stuff like that, or even paying for cage rentals or fields. That's fine. But when you start to pay the coaches, to show up that are supposed to be volunteering and they're not professionals, I don't like that much at all. And there's a lot of people doing out there. So it's crazy out there, people. It's crazy. You got to get educated. You got to talk to people. Hopefully you can find people that are educated about the topic. If not, you can always reach out to me. I pride myself on just giving good, fair, unbiased information out there. There's some people doing really good stuff with club baseball. There's some high school programs doing awesome stuff with their high school baseball programs. And really, there's no reason to butt heads. There's a reason the high school season is where it is. And there's a reason there's a summer baseball circuit and the fall and everything else. And, I think everybody can get along. Ultimately, it's the players and the parents, decision. I think I've shed some light on, at least my opinion and what direction you should move in. But and that's another thing too. Don't let people tell you that they can get you more exposure. I'm so sick of people telling you, as parents that, your kid won't be seen if he's doing this or that. Let me tell you that if your kid is really good and gets really good, which entails training hard and getting good instruction, if he gets good, they'll come see him. You'll get your own exposure. Bring your own exposure to yourself. Do something on the field. Perform. And as I like to say, productivity is the most important part of this game as a player. Productivity, execute. Okay, it's also the most difficult thing to do. But there's steps to take before you get to that. And that's train, learn, apply, adjust. And there's a big part of that is athletic training at a certain age, getting stronger, getting more flexible. For someone to say that their club ball team can get you a scholarship or whatever, yes, it happens to some kids because they're good. And like I said at the start of this podcast, if you're listening, and this is no offense, you probably think like 99% of all parents I've ever met, you probably think that your kid is better than he actually is. And that's okay. It's your kid. Stick up for him, right? Sometimes you're the only ones in their corner. That's fine. So that's normal. I'm not saying that in a bad way, okay? You're always going to have that skewed opinion of the ability level of your own child, okay? So a lot of times there's this entitlement of exposure or, why is my kid not getting looked at or recruited or scouted or whatever? So the answer is always he's not good enough. It's not because he's on this team or that team or this team or that team, or he does this in the spring or this in the summer or this in the fall. The answer is always he's not good enough. Okay? Because if you keep performing and keep developing and keep getting better, keep working hard, keep training at a high level, you're going to get better. And for some, it takes longer than others. But as you get better and you start to perform and execute, whether that's high school or club ball, exposure will come to you. And then you get invited to stuff, and you'll be asked to play on teams instead of having to pay to play on teams. So, like, recently I put something on my Instagram. I think I posted on Facebook where I talked about, the best form of exposure is getting better as a player. So, and again, unfortunately, that's become a huge business. This exposure, these camps, these tryouts, these exposure camps, this and that. People charging $200 to show up for 2 days. It's all a money grab, people. And again, I'm not slamming people trying to make money, but make sure people are getting something out of it, okay? Because when you hold a college exposure camp for 100 kids, and you beg and plead for the best kids in the area to show up so you can bring the college coaches and probably pay the college coaches to even be there, again, you're extracting money from parents, and 80% of the kids there aren't even good enough, or they're not trained, and they haven't gotten good enough physically to perform, run a 60, get on a radar gun off the mound, measure bat speed, whatever they're doing. They're not even good enough to be there, but we tell them that there's going to be 50 colleges there, and that's a good way to get exposed. Again, if you're good enough in the first place, if you're training and you're getting faster, you're getting stronger, your arm's getting stronger, you're becoming a better hitter, fielder, and you're producing in the high school season, and you're producing in the club ball season, then you're already getting that exposure. Not to say some of these, camps aren't good or whatever. And if someone has a good day, then they can maybe get their name written down by somebody. But ultimately, exposure is brought to you by productivity in games, and that happens through enhancing your skill level and training. So there's an equation to how to get better, and there's an equation to how to get exposure. And you can't have one without the other. So anyway, hopefully some of this helped. Again, obviously, I'm very passionate about the topic. It's definitely worth a lot of discussion. And I'm just very weary about people that are one way, one or the other. They're either anti-high school or anti-club. I don't like either one of those. I like more of the option to, depending on what part of the year it is, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I believe. So thanks for listening. If you want to leave some comments, call me, text me, whatever. Maybe I can help you. And that's another thing too. A lot of people make snap decisions and without asking people, their opinions, or without doing their due diligence and research and getting good advice. Remember, it's all about knowledge and information. When people are swaying you one way or the other, and it's money motivated, that's not good knowledge and information. It's not. So hopefully you don't fall into that trap. And that's about all I got. So next time I get a good topic like today, I'll shoot off my next podcast. But until then, thanks for listening. And that's it.